this happens to every practice. There's thousands of dollars
Really?
being written off every single month
Just because they don't have the time, they don't have the time to follow up. They just don't have the time to chase them down.
Yep, you don't have time to chase them down, right? Like the ones that have it quick and available, that's great. But if you have to call these 3 payers and wait for 42 minutes just to find out what the status of the claim is, what if that status is now that it's denied and you have to send over some information, you have to fax over some clinical documentation, now you have more work to be done, right?
AI isn't just changing dentistry, it's completely redefining it. Tune into Bite-Sized Podcast, the Dental AI and Tech Podcast, and stay ahead of the curve.
Dentists are spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month on tools, AI tools, that are supposedly powered by AI. But in a lot of cases, those tools aren't actually powered by AI. They're powered by human beings in a third world country pounding out on keyboards. My guest today is we're going to dig into this because this is a snarky claim, right? My guest is Amber Day, and she has spent her career at the intersection of dental technology, go-to-market strategy, and revenue cycle operations, including a significant stint at Solutionreach, which I'd like to ask you about, as a managing key opinion. You were managing the key opinion leaders there, and you were doing the trade show strategy, which is a big job because they were at every trade show on the planet. You did that before you moved into consulting for DSOs. And so today you head up the sales and partnerships for VoiceCare AI, which is a multimodal revenue cycle management platform, which is backed by, I didn't know this, Mayo Clinic Ventures, which is kind of cool. And you also run your own practice transitions consulting company, helping private practices optimize their financial operations before they go into an exit or whatnot. So she has seen the dental tech industry from inside and out, the whole gamut, as a builder, as a seller, and now as someone who advises practices on which technology is actually doing what it claims it's doing. So tell me about Solutionreach really quick, because Solutionreach is like a stone's throw away from where I'm at. So you were out. Were you in Utah? Were you actually in Utah? Or were you?
I wasn't in Utah. I've been in Southern California, but I feel like about 70% of the industry thinks that I'm based out of Utah because my time at Solutionreach, and I did often get out there to Lehigh and get to spend some time in the mountains. I spent about 5 to 6 years with Solutionreach, everything from managing a territory, and then I managed my own sales team, and then I moved over to KOL management and trade show strategy. And, I learned a lot from it. And I think that a lot of that is also really reflective of, technology in the space. And, we all live our glory days, right? Technology is always shifting and changing, and it's really tough for companies to constantly stay on top. Once you make it to the top, it's tough to maintain that spot, right? And, I think through our conversation today, we'll talk a lot about technology and how it's evolved. And a lot of that really reflects on my time at Solutionreach. And I think that one thing I love about dentistry, it's really a relationship-based business. We all like to do business with the people that we see very often. We know our industry. I learned a lot of that from Solutionreach. And on the patient engagement front, at that time, everybody was looking for patient communications, right? Now that's kind of like a given, right? You have a patient communication tool, but back then, not everybody had that. New. And so it's definitely changed significantly.
Yeah. So and I appreciate you sharing that about Solutionreach. When you left, you went to, where'd you go after that?
Yeah. So, my career has often kind of moved me from, healthcare back to dental, back to healthcare, back to dental. And I think that that's why I have a unique perspective in healthcare market in general. Dental is a specialty segment within healthcare, but it is still healthcare. And really kind of understanding the nuances and technology innovation and integration, and really working with executive stakeholders across larger organizations has helped me a lot on the dental side, because in dental, we really have two markets. We have that private practice, and then we have that DSO market, and they operate very differently. So it gives me a unique perspective. Also, having the clinical background as a dental hygienist, I've worked in private practices before I've ever worked on the executive level of DSO. So I feel like
Yeah.
I can sit in the seat of the private practice, but also understand kind of a little bit more on that PE-backed DSO side as well. So getting that understanding in the dental market is really crucial for younger technology companies trying to bring a solution to the marketplace, because they do not operate the same. That's for sure.
They don't. Totally different. Totally
Mhm.
different.
Yep.
Yeah, we figured that. It took us a little bit longer to figure that out. So I wish you would have told me it was different 10 years ago when we were trying to treat them the same. So okay, well, cool. So now how long you been at VoiceCare AI now?
So I've been with VoiceCare almost 2 years. So I'm about a year and a half in. November will be 2 years.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've enjoyed it there?
I
Don't
have,
say bad things, because then this is going to be recorded, pushed online. So just fake it. If you're not having a good time, fake it.
I feel like, being a young startup, there's some sort of scrappiness that comes into play that is
Yeah.
not in play when you're in a more mature company. I also think we're living in what I call really the AI revolution, and like it's happening right now under our noses. And anything like before, when we had the industrial revolution, it was all changing underneath their noses, and the way that we operate is going to be totally different than it was in the past. And so it's very exciting to be able to have these tools to solve problems that we haven't been able to have accessible today. So to me, it's that excitement of being able to use this new technology, bring it to the forefront, and really support the practices that we work with in several different ways. And so I think that excitement overcomes some of the scrappiness, but I would say that it's definitely an exciting time to be in this space for sure.
You mentioned that you'd call this like a tech gold rush,
It
and
is.
which I would agree with. What's driving all of this development, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think really what truly drives it is the people. I think that, we're starting to realize a lot of the manual work that our team has. And when COVID hit, we lost a lot of people in the dental industry, right? I know
Yeah.
hygienists flooded out really fast, front desk people flooded out. And so it's more challenging now for dental practices to really resolve a lot of the problems that they used to do with human capital that they no longer can do with human capital, because they simply can't find some of those humans to work some of those roles. And so it's identifying those areas in the business where there's just repetitive, cumbersome work that really kind of drains those people, right? And how can we use technology to support those people so they retain them, they're more satisfied in their job, and stay around a lot longer. So I think, of course, AI and technology is driving it, but really that human layer is what's driving it. How can we support our people and help retention? And that's really what the technology is there for.
That's fair. I like that. I thought you were going to say because there's hundreds of billions of dollars being invested into AI development, but you actually gave me the better answer. So
That's what everybody
that.
says, right?
Yeah,
And I think it's a twofold too, right? There's the capital, there's the investors that are really chasing it, and there's a lot of money being poured into it. But it's also identifying the problem and solving a really specific problem, and not just creating a tool and a shiny bell. And there's a lot of those out there now. I'm sure you've seen a lot of them, Adrian.
Yeah. So you were at Dicom just a few days ago, and my business partner, Seth Daly, was there. And Seth came back and he's like, you are not going to believe, in that entire room, at least half of all of the sponsor booths, company booths, had some AI thing in it. Like it was like people are slapping AI on everything. And, this goes back to the claim that we made in the beginning of my opening statement, which is that people are selling AI, but it isn't really AI. And I guess my question is, well, it's a twofold question, so answer this the best you can. Why would that happen? Why would somebody, outside of just greed, is there anything else that would encourage somebody to just say they're offering an AI solution, a piece of software or whatever, when it's not really driven by AI? What would make them think that they could say it's powered by AI? And secondarily, well, let's actually answer that question first, and then I'll ask the next question. Go ahead.
Yeah,
So
I
why would
think we're
somebody do
really,
this?
yeah, and it's a fair question, right? We're really in a building era, and there's a lot of people that are building the plane while they're flying it, right? And
Mhm.
so they're figuring it out as they go, and the people that end up kind of falling to that is, of course, the dental practice or the DSO using it. I will say knowledge of certain details and technology is important, and I like to educate like the practices that I work with around RPA. This is a great example. You know, there is RPA, and then there is true artificial intelligence. RPA is robotic process automation, and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
It's a
since the
chain.
40s or 50s.
For a long time, right? It's not
Yeah,
AI, it's not new. And I consistently am educating about this because I find that a lot of people are really unaware of it. You know, it's really a chain. If one link in that chain breaks, the rest of the chain is broken, and so you got to go
right.
back and fix all these layers. And that's just not the greatest tool that you want to use because there's constant reiterations of breaking that chain. Yeah, we're on rev cycle side, right? And so payers are going to change something every week, every month. And so if that
Yeah.
happens in RPA, you really don't have a tool that you can optimize. And when you look at AI, it's truly learning and reasoning and integrating that RAG technique, right? If there's something that it come across that it learns, it now is going to learn that, ingest that, and it knows how to address it going forward. And RPA just simply doesn't do that. So I often tell my practices, if you're looking for solutions, especially on the revenue cycle side, identify whether it's true artificial intelligence or if it's RPA. And a lot of people are not aware of that. So if anybody takes anything away from today, I would say take that away, look into RPA. A lot of people are saying they're in AI solutions, but it's truly just RPA today.
You dropped RAG in your description, and I think a lot of people listening to this do not understand RAG. Could you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we think of our human brains and when we learn something, it's like, hold on, tell me a little bit more about that. I've never heard that before. And so now I'm going to ingest it. I'm going to go and I'm going to do some research and learn more about it. And now I know about it and I know how to approach it when I go into the next conversation. And that is exactly what RAG is. As an AI agent, for example, if it's trained on a certain workflow and it's come across something in that workflow that it was not trained on, it's not going to just break, right? It's also not going to just skip over it. It's going to ingest that. It's going to bring that back into a knowledge graph. That knowledge graph is what really builds that brain and that neural network across the AI agent. So it's only getting smarter every single day and it's continuing to get smarter and it's moving very fast. So, I mean, within a year and a half, what we think is smart today, I always say AI is as dumb as it's going to be today. And it's only getting smarter and smarter. And that's truly using RAG, just like a human brain would and how we learn things.
All right. So I'm going to thank you for explaining that. You know,
And
I
you're a
read a
builder
bunch of articles
yourself,
about,
right? You're a builder
well,
yourself. You do a lot
I
around
don't
it.
build. I'm not a developer. I'm not
But
a
you like it.
developer,
You
but
like to play with
I
the
know what I
tools.
want. I know what I want. So when I talk to my developer, I say, I need this done. And the developer says, yeah, we're going to do that using RAG. So and I'm like, great.
So you're like, I
Whatever
came up
that
with that
is,
term. Okay.
that makes sense. Do that. Right. But I have read a little bit about all these different ways in which the AI engines analyze. They use kind of like circuitous processes that feedback loops to retrain them and help them get better and so forth. And so what you're talking about here is like the actual structure of how like the AI agents think through problems. And there are different ways in which you can set AI agents up. So, and RAG is kind of like the go-to model for building AI agents, at least right now. You know, who
Yeah,
knows
it's
what they're gonna
crucial.
have in
And for
6 months.
anybody listening, it's really retrieval augmented generation. If you want
Right.
the full term, RAG is always a lot easier to say. But if you break down what it stands for, that's truly what it is. It retrieves it, it augments it, and then it generates a new outcome, right?
Right. Right. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to press on you a little bit on this. And these are not questions that I prepped you for. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So here's my concern and the issue, and I want you to comment on this. So a lot of companies I mean, people are already going to shows and seeing all these AI, company AI or company with AI or whatever AI company, and they're already going, I am so freaking tired of hearing about this thing AI, right? They're just slapping it on their company name because it's hype.
Yeah.
It's they're running with the hype about what's going on with AI. In my experience, with my own company, okay, the AI systems that we use to deliver our marketing products, it's never the tool that solves the problem. It's always the human that understands the tool that ends up solving problems. And so when people start saying we're an AI company, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? Because when they say that they're an AI company, they could have 99% of their company like modeled like a typical company would 3 years ago before this whole AI revolution happened. And 1% of it could have a little bit of AI in it. And they could say they're an AI company and nobody knows the difference, right?
Yep.
So it's really kind of like a little bit alarming, a little bit frustrating that it seems like people are being duped, dentists are being duped, right, on this AI hype. And I'm not downplaying the AI hype. It's literally going to change the world, and it already is. I mean, right? But when you start paying dollars for a piece of software that's powered by AI, the real question is not whether or not that tool does the thing that it says it does. What really matters is if you can freaking implement it into the practice and you can get your people to change the way that they do their tasks, because they have to change the way they're doing tasks because some of the tasks are handled by AI now. And that's the most difficult part
It is.
for me.
It is.
So I want you to comment on that as you go to market, because look, this is not me jabbing at you, but it's VoiceCare AI.
Yeah.
So how do you solve that problem of you're an AI company, and I know you guys are legitimately leveraging AI, so you're not being deceptive in any way. Okay, I can raise my hand to the square on that and vouch for you. But how do you make sure that it actually gets implemented? Because if it's not implemented properly, it's dead weight. It's wasted money.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
I mean, that's a great question. And I think for me, being in dental for so long, I approach it like a consultant. I truly don't feel like the solution is for everyone. I think you have to solve a problem if you're trying to just sell a solution and not really solve the problem and dig into the workflow. And, this can directly go to like ADSO last month. I had a session where I spoke about revenue cycle as a whole. And we're not talking about just an insurance verification tool or a claims tool. Let's talk about the entire workflow and let's map that out. And I think a lot of executives tend to not do this. They're being reactive to the problem, right? We are adding new locations and we have to do so much insurance verification. What's a good tool? I trust this person. Let's pull the trigger, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's more important to really map out the entire workflow to know how many manual steps are going across revenue cycle.
Right.
You might be solving one problem, but now there's another problem that you still haven't solved for that you now have to get another point solution for. And,
Right.
a lot of the feedback from that session was, wow, I didn't realize there was 17 touch points from the beginning to end that we have to track down pairs or log into a portal or call. And that piece alone was so insightful. And they hadn't even done that for their own practice or their own business. So
Right.
first, you got to really narrow in on the true problem. And you also got to know where you're going in order to solve that problem. I have a DSO partner that's pretty standardized. They're now got on one PMS. They're really not doing heavy M&A now. They're trying to do optimized same store growth. And then I have another one that's adding 5 practices every month, right? And so they're a different business and a different growth phase. And so
Right.
solving for those problems is going to be vastly different if you're adding 5 new locations and you have all of the claims and all of the insurance work that you're, adding to that pile. And
Right.
for me, if you look at an AI solution, it shouldn't solve one problem, because now you're just bloating that tech stack, right? And I see so
Right.
many solutions that are, it's like we have this tool, this tool, this tool, and they actually all kind of do the same thing, but they like this one because it does better, this one because it does
Right.
better. And that bloating is going to eventually cause a problem. You rip something out. So when you're looking for a true AI partner in a noisy space of AI, I would
Yeah.
say, one, validate that it actually is solving a problem across the entire workflow, not just being reactive to what's happening today. And like, my team can't keep up with insurance verification, let's get an insurance verification tool. Being reactive is good, but you can make better decisions if you map it out and get a true partner, not just a vendor. And what I mean by partner is, technology is building and growing and changing. Every week we have something new, right? Dropping from Claude, dropping from OpenAI. And so it's kind of keeping
Yeah.
up with it. You truly want a partner that's not only keeping up with it, but maybe going to help you build when it comes to that, because we're really in an era of build or buy, right? And I feel like on the enterprise side, the DSO side, really want a partner that, hey, if I want to, have you build something here in this workflow, would that be an opportunity down the line, right? Instead of just being a partner for revenue cycle or just for this solution. So you want to make sure that that partnership is strong to be able to build and customize for you as an individual, and not just be a point solution. Point solutions will go away very fast because it's getting very noisy when it comes to AI. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that it's a
It
crazy
does.
space in AI, and it's really tough for the practices to differentiate from those two.
Yeah.
I would say don't get caught by the shiny demo, right? We're always like this, we can make a demo look beautiful. Ask the
Right.
vendors when the last time they failed and how they fixed that. Like, what was a failure with one of your
Right.
partners, and what did you do to fix that? That's going to tell you a lot more than that gorgeous slideshow or that voice AI agent demo.
Well, the point of having multiple point solutions. So right now, because we are in this tech gold rush, and there is literally software being developed by the week, maybe by the day, and entering the
Yeah.
dental industry, it's freaking crazy.
I
When
know.
we and you guys have an AI receptionist. I use Annie
Mhm.
AI. When we launched that 3 years ago, there were like 5 companies that were offering a front desk receptionist to pick up phone calls, right?
Mhm.
I've got at least 100 that I've counted so far. I mean,
Wow.
that's just one particular solution. How do we not miss phone calls, right? And then if you go to another problem, you go to the problem of, like, let's say, note taking and uploading your notes into the PMS at the end of the day, right? There's probably, I don't know exactly how many, there's probably a dozen or two companies that have note taking solutions, and that's all they do. And then you have companies like yourself that do revenue cycle management. And so anyway, where we're at right now, which is frustrating to all of us as well as by the dentists, is that we're going to be moving into a consolidation phase. Companies that offer receptionists, front desk receptionists, will develop note taking, or the other way around. Note taking companies will develop a receptionist. Okay, so, and I think you guys are trying to do that. Are you not? Are you trying to, like, solve multiple problems,
Yeah,
multiple point
well,
solutions? Is that? Go ahead.
I would say we're really focused on revenue cycle management, and kind of going back to my earlier statement, as we had partners that signed up and are using us, they would ask, hey, can you develop that AI receptionist? It wasn't our lead product. It still isn't our lead product. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's an easy use case to solve for. And so if they're going to ask me that, hey, I don't want to go get another point solution, can you build this? Then yeah, absolutely. And we have done that for our partners. I would say that I think that the PMSs of the world, and we already see this on the healthcare side with the epics of the world, is that eventually those type of solutions, they are the data, right? They're the single source of truth.
Yeah.
They have the clinical notes, they have the patient information. They're going to have that receptionist that is going to be far more embedded into the workflow, because they are the data source, than any outside solution will be. And so it's the wild, wild west right now to go, hey, let's establish like a lot of partners that are using this tool today, but a lot of them are going to be taken out by the PMSs of the world that are going to implement that. They're already working on it. They're already building it, and they're already going that way. And so I think that gives us a finite timeline from a early stage startup of a voice AI agent company to execute, land grab some of that business, and then hopefully be one of those that gets acquired by the PMSs instead of them having to build some of that themselves. Revenue cycle is so technical, especially because payers are very difficult, and there's thousands of different payers with thousands of different rules that I do not see PMSs really building that for a long, long time. I think a quick eligibility verification is easy. But again, that's a quick eligibility verification. It doesn't have your code level coverage. It doesn't have your fee schedule and some of those details in it. So you have to think about that as you buy solutions that, hey, 2 years down the road, the Dentrix Ascends of the world and the Denticons are going to already have that. And I don't even think it's 2 years away.
You think it's within 2 years that PMSs are going to be launching note-taking voice agents?
I would say sooner than that. I would say sooner than that.
Earlier than that?
In the next year, we'll start to see that. They're already working on it. They already have partners in beta doing it. So it's a matter of time of really executing and going after that land grab. Still in that business from those point solutions, if you will.
Yeah. Definitely going to happen. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath in the AI software industry over the next couple of years, for sure. Yeah, it's going to happen.
And you don't blame the practices a lot, because from a practice standpoint, hey, if it's already built into your PMS, that's the single source of truth already, it is easier to consolidate that way. You probably use that PMS forever instead of kind of having a standard partner. But I think for people like Annie, for example, that's already been in this space, that was one that's earlier on, you build that loyalty and trust with customers that, you'll be able to maintain that customer base. I don't think they're going to immediately switch and go, okay, Dentrix Ascend has this, and make that switch. But for the newer ones that are coming to the marketplace and just trying to get that business,
it'll be a tough sell.
Yeah, it's over, right? And you got to see where that technology is going. I mean, I think, even since we've been in communication and really talking a lot about AI, how much has changed in the last 6 months that we've been talking about AI, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's almost tough to keep up with too, from a standpoint. I'm a part of a Wharton executive group, and for them, like even for us, it's like tough to keep up with, right? So let alone the dental practice trying to keep up with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so with your product, let's talk a little bit more about it. So VoiceCare AI uses a human verification layer, correct?
We do have a human in the loop. I would say
on top of the AI agent,
on top of the
a human
AI
in the
agent.
Loop. Okay.
There's always a human in the loop. I think where technology sits today, it's still needed. Will it always be needed? No. But I also think that our consumers are not yet fully trusting of AI. And so it's important for them to have that human in the loop layer. And also we deal with payers. Payers are notoriously difficult. If you give me 100 denied claims to call on, I might be able to get 98 of them completed through our technology, but maybe there's this one regional payer that the call keeps dropping, or there's no portal. And so we need to use that human in the loop layer in order to deliver those results back. And that's my goal, is like, if you're paying us to get the result, I want to deliver that result back with you. When I started, we were at a 93% accuracy rate. And today at Dykema, we were on that main video when Brian opened up the show. We're at a 99.7% accuracy rate today, which is the highest level of accuracy rate in the industry. And the only ones that are working across medical and dental. And that's important because oral surgery is billing medical. I feel like a lot of solutions are more for the GP practices, but what about all the specialties? What about the endodontists and the oral surgery practices? They need support too, Yeah.
I won't mention any companies, but I've talked to three companies, three other revenue cycle management companies, people that I know at these organizations. There was one particular company, which I won't mention, that went to market about 1.5 years ago. That they were a full AI revenue cycle management, no humans involved, blah, 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 blah. And I think they picked up quite a bit of business, but it fell apart a little bit. I mean, I talked to a guy that used to work there at this particular company. He's like, there's no AI. He's just got a bunch of guys pounding away on the keyboards. They just say it's AI.
Wow.
which is just like one of those slimy kind of like, oh, seriously. Anyway, but the other two companies, which are highly respectable companies, like yours, all are trying to automate as much as possible, but there's always humans in the loop and across the board. Nobody agrees that even if you could automate everything, that you should. That AI is great at doing tasks, but it's not good at judgment calls. And so you always are going to need a human, which is kind of like harkening back to something I mentioned earlier, which is like when you implement, like for my company, right? We've implemented a whole bunch of different automations with AI involved for different services, right? And when I go to my employee who's been a copywriter for 10 years, right? And I say, you're no longer a copywriter, you're an editor. You're never writing anything anymore, you're editing, right? They're all of a sudden, they're like, their minds explode. They're like, what's happening? I don't understand. I'm going to die. Well, are you getting ready to fire me? Am I, I mean, it's really, 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 really hard. So like, kind of going to this idea of like humans in the loop, what you're doing is you're developing something. I'm predicting here. You're developing softwares, but you have to have an individual that understands enough about how this software and the automation, the AI work in order to understand when it breaks or when it's when the judgment calls are off, or you see what I'm saying? So you still need a person that understands the system, but now you're just not having that person push buttons.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Is that fair to say what you guys?
I think that's you perfectly put it, right? It's still going to need an operational layer, right? There's still going to have some oversight. You're never going to get rid of who's customizing the workflow as the business changes, who's shifting that AI workflow that you have built in. What's the data and the feedback from it? One thing that I found that was really insightful to me too, with some of our partners, is they would look at the data and the reporting dashboard and say, I didn't realize like these two payers were spending like 50% of the time tracking them down for claims denials and claims. Right. The other ones, we can get that fairly fast, but these two were spending so much time based on the dashboard and how many hours are in those calls. And like, maybe we should drop those two payers, right? It makes you think differently operational wise than going, okay, here's solving the problem, let it run, and that's it. Now you can look into your data a little bit more and go, hold on, do I really need this pair, right?
It gives you the information to make great judgment calls. Yeah,
or renegotiate it, right? You can go back and say, hey, my cost to collect for this pair is twice as much as this pair. I'm going to go back and I'm going to renegotiate with this pair, right? As far as what our fees are and all of that. So it's not just what the tool's doing for you, but it's also sometimes the insight and the data that it kind of brings to the forefront that you would have never known without it, right?
Right. Thank you. When you described your system to me, as I was trying to like wrap my head around what you guys are actually doing, you're using phone calls, clearinghouse, APIs, you're portal scraping, you're doing a whole bunch of stuff within a single AI agent. So for a practice who just wants like claims handled, right? Why does all of that matter? Like everything you've built, why is all that important if somebody just wants claims handled?
Yeah. Because claims are managed by those payers, and every payer is different. Every payer is challenging. Some payers you can go into that portal and get the claim status. Some you have to pick up the phone and call and wait for 45 minutes to get that claim status. Some the clearinghouse will have that information. And so it's a different bag based on that payer. And the bigger the organization is and the more payers that it has, you have to have that it's like a Swiss Army, right? If I'm going to work with this regional payer, I have to call them. They don't even have that stuff available in the portal. If I'm going to do United Healthcare, then I can easily get this through the portal. So it's just dependent on payer. And so you have to have those multiple modalities in order to gather all of this detailed coverage and detailed information. And when it comes to claims, I see so much money going out the door with dental practices, just being written off, right? And I think that directly is correlated to, one, a capacity issue, right? If you have 1,000 claims and you have timely filing, you only have a certain amount of time to be able to work those claims. So you're going to focus on the higher value ones. The lower ones will get written off. So you're really kind of going, okay, I'm going to focus on the higher value and these will be written off, and I'm just used to that. And that's kind of business as usual. And that's how we've been operating in dentistry for so long.
Wait a minute. Is this common? Is that common?
This happens to every practice. There's thousands of dollars
Really?
being written off every single month just in
Just because they
claims
don't
that
have the
have been
time, they don't have the time to follow up. They just don't have the time to
Yeah,
chase them down.
yep. You don't have time to chase them down, right? Like the ones that have it quick and available, that's great. But if you have to call these 3 payers and wait for 42 minutes just to find out what the status of the claim is, what if that status is now that it's denied and you have to send over some information, you have to fax over some
Yeah.
clinical documentation, now you have more work to be done, right? So I think that that's the biggest bottleneck. And also, one thing I love about my partners, I love to have a quick win, right? How can we put money in your pocket today? I don't even care that it's a shiny AI tool. How can I put more of that money back into your pocket in the next 60 days and prove it to you, right? And that to me has the biggest impact for my partners because now they trust me. They absolutely believe me because they see how much is being written off after I work with our revenue cycle leader. And we can actually, it's data, right? So we can track those
Yeah.
numbers fairly quick. And I think a lot of tools, it's tough to equate that ROI, right? It might be a year that you see that, 6 months you see that. Like, where does the true ROI come in, and
Yeah.
how do you put that in a true KPI? But for us on the claim side, here's the numbers, and if we move you from a
It's really,
50%
really
collection
clear.
to a 70% collection, there's this much money involved, right?
This is just another reason to hate insurance companies. Like I
Right?
have a
I
long
agree.
list, a laundry list of reasons why I hate insurance companies. They just slow play this and then hope the dentist writes it off.
Oh, that's
Freaking
absolutely. They're dependent on it. They
so
know that
ridiculous.
cash
So
flow
ridiculous,
velocity,
man.
you know, velocity will not be there, and so they'll. That's how they get paid. That's how they make their money, right? And so my goal is to help those dental practices bring more of the actual revenue in that they're actually billing out for, right? There's a difference between productions and
Yeah.
true collections. Production and
I
collections is a
actually
totally different number.
totally different number. Yeah. I actually feel
Hmm.
kind of stupid even not knowing that this is actually what's happening. Anytime an insurance company is involved, this is what's happening. So, all right. Yeah,
This is what's
geez.
happening for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. So you've got a multimodal process here, or an agent as multimodal, because we're looking at any way we need to like chase down the payers, right?
Hmm.
A lot of different touch points means more potential failure points in the agent when the agent has to do multiple steps or one step is connected to another step. So how do you handle a scenario where one of those channels returns a bad or returns bad or conflicting data? Like, because you got to go and you got to retrain the agent, or I'm just, is there an example of something like that you've like dealt with your agent?
Yeah, I mean, like we just talked about, the payers kind of being a pain in the butt, and I also see that sometimes the payers don't always give them the accurate information themselves, right? They may
Okay.
have changed that policy or changed that plan or the rules around something within that workflow that they changed a month ago, and they said, "Oh, we posted it publicly," but the dental practices don't know this, right? So, I think that constant shift and change is something that we always got to keep up with. And we also talked about RAG. And so that ability to go, hey, this payer or this clearinghouse is always producing data that isn't necessarily accurate. We can coincide that with a call, get them on the phone. Our calls are fully recorded, transcribed, saved in the cloud, and compare, right? Compare that data to what
Right.
was in the portal. A lot of the times it's not accurate. What's mostly available in the portal hasn't been updated. Even the clearinghouse and sometimes can be slow to updating that information. And so having that multi-layer approach allows us to actually verify, right? Going, okay, we pulled this from the
Yeah.
portal, but maybe we should call to verify that aligns with what was already in the portal, where that discrepancy is. And then really working with the practices and the payers on like the data. Data integrity is important. AI is only as good as what you're going to feed it. We're a lot better now than we were back in my Solutionreach days. I remember we would get people for recall, recare, and like half of the text messages would bounce because the cell phone number was wrong or it was a landline number. They would put the cell phone number in the landline field in the PMS, right? And so the data that is fed to us is the most important piece. So if the team is really adding in that patient and that their plan number and their plan ID, but that plan ID is wrong, I'm limited in
It's
the
all met.
information
Yeah.
that I can pull, right?
Well,
They're not going to give me the
but
information because I have the wrong member ID, no matter what, right?
Amber, this is the problem. Like, do you guys have a solution to fix this? Because usually this is like the number one reason why the whole system couldn't work, is because you don't control the data input.
Yeah.
But do you do a data cleanup or something like that when you first start working with a practice to make sure that they've got all the correct information in there, all the right payers? I mean, do you do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really work on that I honestly had to figure out really up front was standardization across to whatever that use case is, right? If let's say it's insurance verification, do you have a standard insurance verification form that you're using for all your practices? You have 250 locations. Well, no, each practice maybe has a slightly different one, but we're kind of just gathering it up front and we're working that way. And you have to create some sort of standardization across the entire DSO.
Organization.
I have one that's like has oral surgery, endo, and then they have GP. And so that's a different verification form. So you have to now standardize across specialty because they're very different. And you have to make sure that that workflow is streamlined up front before they even implement our tool. I could say, hey, get the tool, we're going to help you work. But I want it to be effective for them. And you mentioned earlier on in this discussion, like implementation and change management is the biggest thing, right? And if we don't address that up front and we just put in this tool that's going to work for them, it's going to have more problems down the line. So I'd rather take my time and make sure to help them standardize that up front. And I think they also truly appreciate that, because there's a lot of times they're like, I've never had a vendor do kind of this stuff that you guys are doing with me here. But that's the way that I'm going to make it successful for them. And then training those team members. So if it's centralized billing team, or if it's the front desk person at the practice location, how do we train them to make sure that data is clean and the importance of it? I think those team members just don't realize the importance of it, right? They're doing a million things in the practice. They're just putting that in there, and they got the next patient they got to close the treatment on, right? And so that training up front is going to be really important. But going back, there's really nothing that I can do to really clean up that data if it's already inaccurate in there.
So Amber, so what happens in a situation where somebody buys your product and you implement all of the best practices in terms of data entry and streamlining forms and stuff, but everything in the past is just like a freaking disaster? Like, how do you solve that problem?
Yeah.
Do you have them go in and start updating data, because they got to make sure they got all the right insurance payers in there, I don't even know the names, the vernacular, the codes for the plans, are those correct? Like, I don't even know but I know it's messed up. Because I've talked to a lot of people that do revenue cycle management, and they're like, yeah, I have to spend a freaking week cleaning up all of the stuff that's in there so that we can get the right data before we can start implementing software, because you're just scaling disaster if you got a disaster to work with. So how do you solve that problem if everything in the past is messy?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the good things is usually our primary core use cases is insurance verification. And so a lot of the times that's a start from scratch, right? Even if it's a patient that's coming in with a new plan. So there's that ability to fix the previous problem going forward. So as we verify insurances, we're able to make sure that they're accurate going forward. Anything prior to, like claims, if we're working a claim that was denied because it was missing a member ID, that's exactly where the power of our tool comes in, right? They wouldn't have had that time to find out, to go, hey, it was a claim status, it's now at 90 days, and it's denied because has the wrong member ID.
Oh, so it'll find the problems.
It'll find all the
problems. Okay, gotcha.
And we'll serve all the problems up to you, so now you can go back and fix them. And I think that's the
gotcha. All right.
And then, if you get more denials, that's a verification. That's an upfront problem, right? We're not verifying accurately, or you're coding it wrong to get more denials. So if you clean it on the front end, you're going to have less to work on that back end. I'll help you catch up with that back end. But how do we prevent this from happening on these denial side, right? And that's the biggest piece. If you give me 1,000 claims to call on, and there's, let's say 402 of them that are denied, how long would it have taken you to figure out the denial reason, where to submit the appeal, where to get the clinical documentation? It's just very time consuming, and the payers know it. So they're like, okay, I'll catch up with about 50 of them. The remaining 300 are being written off, and that's how we make our money. Unfortunately.
Where do you? Yeah, I get it. Where do you see? Well, let me ask you one more. I'm going to ask you that question in a second. So, we talked about a very messy, convoluted, messy and convoluted. We have a crowded space in terms of software being developed. With the other solutions that are out there that do revenue cycle management, not just software companies, but even just consultants that do it, right? How do you see VoiceCare AI surviving the crowded space long term? What's the value proposition or the benefit that you guys have that nobody else has?
Yeah. Great question. I think that one, really knowing your marketplace. There is a lot of, startup companies, and I've talked with a lot of them that come outside of dentistry, right? Some of them come from healthcare, some of them come from
Right.
retail. They come from all kinds of industries, and they're great developers and engineers, and they're just trying to solve problems, but they don't know a lot of the intricate details of dental. It always seems pretty easy on the surface, but then once you get into it,
Yeah.
you realize, oh, it's not that simple. And in fact, I think healthcare is a little bit easier than dental in some essence. And so, one, you have to really know the industry. Those that don't are going to have a hard time catching up and just understanding the industry before they can
Yeah.
even truly solve the problem.
And a
then
lot of this industry's relationships, as you know, in
it
sales,
is,
a
it is,
lot of
yeah.
it's relationships. Yeah.
It's all who you know. We all are very close and support one another as well. And, I think that when we look at the revenue cycle space, and I mentioned this before, it's not being a point solution. Yes, we do insurance verification, but insurance verification comes in many shapes and in many forms, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you can find a partner that does just that. But now you're really bloating that tech stack by going, okay, I have a partner for insurance verification, an outsourced partner for the claims and denials piece, right? And then internally, we're doing the predeterminations for our surgery cases. So, now you just have this workflow that's broken across three different things, right? That you're paying for, whether it's the human capital, the outsourced partner, or the insurance verification vendor. So, really, we differentiate by working across the entire revenue cycle. I like to say that we're the payer engagement layer. We talk a lot about patient engagement, but nobody really talks about payer engagement. And there is a lot of engagement that goes behind these payers, right? Whether it's
Right.
calling, logging into their portals, sending them faxes, all of that engagement is time consuming, and that lives across the entire workflow. So if you can just eliminate that, oh, I need to call the payer to get this information, or I need to log into the portal to get this information, no matter what use case it is, you solve that engagement layer. Now you're solving for the entire workflow, right? So
Got it.
that's really how I like to educate and support my partners. Is you can always find an insurance verification solution. There's a lot of great ones out there, but if you're really looking to kind of solve more fundamental problem across revenue cycle, that I think that's where we shine for sure.
Why VoiceCare AI? Why that name? I'm so confused. How did that come about?
Yeah,
Voice
I
care.
mean,
What does that mean? Voice care. Like, I don't get it.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people sometimes think it's associated with a little bit more on the care clinical side, right? So
Yeah.
they really think it's a voice AI agent on the patient side. We
That's
do
what it sounds like. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it
and
sounds
we
like.
do outbound calls for recall, reactivation. We can do all of that, inbound, outbound. I think revenue cycles where we found our home, and we originally started as just a voice AI agent piece, and this is
Got
how
it.
the company's truly evolved. Right? Is going. I came on board because I've been in dental practices for 20 years, and I hear that hold music in the front office going on while the front desk was doing whatever, and there's just this hold music for an hour going on. And that has been notorious across my entire career. So when I came with VoiceCare, I said, that is definitely a problem to solve, because I've heard that dang hold music for the last 20 years. And if I can not hear and there's a hold music, then that's solving a problem. But of course, we really quickly learned that, sometimes you can get the information, the lower hanging fruit from the portals or from the clearinghouses. And then we only need to use the call to really get the granular information, the code level coverage, the frequencies, the fee schedule, those type of things. So the platform's definitely evolved since I've come on board. And I think a lot of that comes from learning from our partners and really them requesting, hey, can you do this, this, and this? And really being agile and having that ability to go back to our product team and let's do this and let's add this. It was always the vision, but we had to start with one layer. And I think that voice AI agent layer is a big piece of who we are, because we are the back engine to a lot of companies that I cannot mention, that we're actually running their voice engine on the revenue cycle side of the business.
Right.
So, that is something that we are known for. This is the voice AI agent side on the payer side, but it's not just that piece. Multimodal is what really makes it unique.
I gotcha. So if somebody needs to use the intelligence layer, the voice AI intelligence layer, they don't have to just buy your product. They could work with you as a partner.
Yep, absolutely.
Is that fair? Okay. All
yeah,
right.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right,
Yep.
cool.
'Cause that's the hardest part to master.
Yeah, for sure. like the development, as we were developing Annie, like we spent the first 2 years just figuring out how to build in the logic and inside of the AI agent to be able to handle like every single weird little quirk on how practices schedule, because the agent schedules appointments as well, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like some people have, ghost operatories, and some people like to schedule in 2 columns, and some people, it's like all this weird stuff. I mean, trying to figure out how to build out the agent so that it understands how dental practices run is a full-time job, which I honestly, going back to something that you said, you were talking about people coming in from outside of the dental industry to develop software in the dental industry. I'm telling you, man, like anybody that doesn't understand dentistry intimately and is building deep rather than wide, they are not going to last. Yeah. Because the nuance of any of the softwares out there has to be so crisp and so clean, it cannot make mistakes, right? Yeah. If you give somebody a piece of software and that team's like implementing it, and then it makes a mistake that causes them to like have a hiccup and it takes 10 minutes of their time, they're immediately going to turn and say, get rid of this damn thing. It's causing problems for me. Let me go back to the way I was doing it. I mean, yes. you literally have to make sure that shit is dialed in.
Yeah, you do. And that comes down to integration. And there's totally. A lot of great tools. I'll say there's some amazing tools and technology out there, but it's only as good as it is integrated into the workflow. And if you don't have that integration piece figured out, you have nothing.
You got
because
nothing.
From a user standpoint, you have to be able to, nobody wants to work out of another platform or log into another platform, or it needs to be streamlined.
Totally integrated into the PMS.
Totally integrated. And that means different things to different people. So I will say that some vendors out there will say, hey, we have read and write access, but where is that writing back to, right? Where is that pulling from? Those intricate details matter and matter more before you make that decision. And so sure. I always, that's why I think a lot of people are in that pilot phase of wanting to really pilot it live and really see what that workflow lives. But I always tell people, ask your vendors. If they say it right back, that doesn't necessarily mean it writes back the way that you see it writing back. So the devil's always in the details, and it's only as good as it is integrated into the workflow. And we're very interoperability space right now. There's a lot of PMSs. There's a lot of legacy PMSs. People are starting to navigate to the cloud, which makes it a lot easier. And I would say everybody should probably migrate to the cloud at one point. But it's harder for specialty side of dentistry, right? Like there isn't a lot of the legacy platforms. There's still server-based.
Options too.
There's
not a lot of options too. Some of the endodontic PMSs, like you look at them, you're like, this stuff was built in 82. It's like,
and it's the only option.
And it's the only option. It's like, you can't do anything. But nobody's spent the time to really enter the industry and build a new PMS for them. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on. What's the best way that people can reach you if they'd like to get a consultation, see your product, whatever?
Yeah, I would say go to our website. Everything's available on our website, VoiceCare.ai. You can kind of get a look at everything that we're doing across revenue cycle, both on the healthcare and the dental side. If you want to take a demo, you can request a demo there. I'm also, of course, available on LinkedIn. You can feel free to ping me and ask me any questions if you have anything from today's conversation with Adrian. And I really appreciate you having me on today. I really enjoy these conversations. It's what I live and breathe and love. And so I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate you coming on. I'll put your LinkedIn, your LinkedIn link LinkedIn link.
LinkedIn link. There you go.
I'll put it in the description. So anybody wants to reach out to Amber, it'll be in the description. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate your time, Amber. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks for listening to Bite Size Podcast. Tune in to stay up to date with everything dental AI and tech